Welcome to the channel. I'm Kitty Cat Country. If you're hearing a chirping, it's Jebediah Springfield. I am taking really good care of her right now because she lost her sister Dolores. So she needs the extra support until I can get her another baby chick to keep her company, because you really shouldn't have one. So in the attempt to make my videos shorter, not 20 minutes long, I'm going to reduce the number of books that I'm going to be reviewing, and this time I'm going to be reviewing two. So the first book I'm reviewing is called The Things We Keep by Sally Hepworth. The way this book was written, the reader goes back and forth from three main characters from different time spans of the story. I fumble my words because it's just as confusing a concept when you read it on paper, but I'll explain in a bit. So one of the characters is Anna, and she has early onset Alzheimer's at 38, which is really sad. So she has to be admitted to a care facility called Roslyn House. Eve, the other character, has been recently widowed, and she's left with a 7-year-old daughter who is also a main character in the story, because the story is in her perspective as well. So the story hops back and forth between these three characters. Each chapter is labeled with either a character's name and or the time frame that is relevant to the story. For example, it'll say like Anna 15 months earlier, or Eve 8 months later. And that's because the story really starts with Anna being admitted to the care facility, and Eve comes later. So I couldn't keep up with the time frames in my mind. So it just didn't make sense, because it kept jumping back and forth from like 18 months and 8 months and 4 months and, back and forth. So if you're reading this, it comes easy, but in my mind, whatever was Anna's chapter, I knew that it was in the past, and Eve's and Clementine's chapters were in the present. It just made more sense to me that way. So the way the story was written further confirmed that Sally Hepworth's writing in a way that is easily digestible in my head. So even though this is like a complicated construction of a book, her writing just like made things easy for me to understand. It's very smooth. Her writing's not clunky. It's easy, effortless, kind of like you're listening to music. So I don't mean simple, like she doesn't write like single syllable words or anything like that. I mean that there's like no dreamlike scenarios that try to convey emotion. The emotion was conveyed through true human experience. She could have easily relied on like woo-woo imagery, because a big topic is Alzheimer's, but she didn't, and to which I'm grateful. Hepworth's writing style, subjects, and characters keep me from wanting to skim, because I'm invested. I have the attention span of a goldfish when I'm reading, but I can tell you who all the people in the care facility are, even though they were side characters. That should tell you something. I want to praise Hepworth on one more thing, and then we can get back to the story. Hepworth's The Good Sister had me on my seat, and it was a very different story than this one, but it was executed just as well. The former had me hoping that good will win over evil, and it felt like a race against time, that the police would arrest the right person in that story. But this one was completely different. It was a bittersweet story that reminded me how important it is to be kind. So back to the story. Eve finds herself at Roslyn House, looking for a job. And with her culinary background, she's a shoo-in for the cook position that she's applied for. It's there where she meets Anna and the love of her life, Luke, who Anna met when she arrived to Roslyn House. Luke also has a type of memory loss, which makes it hard for him to remember words. Eve eventually forms bonds with the residents, but especially with Anna. The more she interacts with Anna, the more Eve is convinced that Anna is capable of remembering more than what the manager of Roslyn House believes. Eve believes that even though Anna has Alzheimer's, she remembers Luke. Not his name or where he is in the house, but she physically remembers him. There's a rule at Rosalind House that they cannot be left alone, but they just naturally end up gravitating towards each other, which in my opinion is another testament to the way they can both remember each other. There's another rule at Rosalind House. Anna and Luke's door must remain locked overnight. Eve is determined to break the rules and get the two together, but she has a lot to lose in doing so because she is infamous for something awful her husband orchestrated, and is lucky she was able to find a job so soon after word got out about all of it. Eve's daughter, Clementine, is also going through it at her school. Children can be very cruel. I appreciated these chapters because Clem is trying to wrestle with how she thinks about her dad and how the world thinks about her dad. And the world is not holding back, even on her. All in all, I really enjoyed the story, the characters. It's like wearing your favorite lounge pants. It's something you can really relax into. So that's my review on that one. And I want to review, and then the funny thing is, this next review is short, but don't underestimate this, because when I say this is my favorite book to date, it's my favorite book to date. Okay? And I'm not sure why it just got darker all of a sudden. I'm sorry. One of the main characters is Alicia Berenson, who is a famous painter. She's married to a famous fashion photographer, Gabriel. One night, Gabriel arrives late from a fashion shoot and is found tied to a chair and shot in the face. When the police arrive, Alicia was in the room with the gun on the floor and clearly in shock. She was unresponsive during the arrest, during the trial, and as a result, she was put in a forensic unit, which is like a care facility for people who can't be left unsupervised and are criminally inclined. Before she was sent to the facility, she did make one last painting, which mystifies everyone, like the whole public, because she still hasn't said anything in regard to the murder or anything else. And she doesn't say anything for years. The other main character is Theo Faber, who is a criminal psychotherapist who desperately wants to make Alicia speak. He sees it as a huge boost in his career if he is the one that gets her to talk after what I think is like 6 or 7 years. I mean, like, she hasn't said anything. Like, the police came in, didn't say anything. She was on trial, silent. She didn't respond. No, it's so crazy. Anyways, back to Theo. His peers at the facility warn him to keep his distance from her because she's beautiful. Her lack of speech makes her mysterious and alluring, apparently, which I think is weird because when Theo first sees her, she's literally sitting in a group therapy session with drool dripping from her mouth because she's been heavily medicated due to her attempt to unalive herself. They're a weird bunch at the facility, so Theo is alright at home. Theo has studied Alicia's case for years, and when he finally gets to the facility, he does a lot of unorthodox things because not only does he want to get the truth about what transpired that night, that Alicia shot her husband, but she also wants to get her to explain her last painting titled Alcestis. Alcestis? Yes. This is the best book I've read to date because not only are there so many threads to follow, so many unknowns, so many leads, one can't help but make assumptions about the whys, but up until the very end, I was wrong about everything. I want to take a minute to describe the part where everything is about to be answered. This part of the book had movement for me. In this moment, I felt the tide turning and the rug being pulled from beneath me. This chapter had movement, okay? I'm going to assume that everyone else reads and their mind makes a movie of the words and you're like simultaneously reading and watching a movie in your head. But the delivery of the answers made me feel like I was being catapulted into a scene where I felt like I was seeing something I wasn't supposed to see. I saw the secret to the magician's trick. I don't think I've ever felt those sensations while reading a book. So those are my reviews. I hope you enjoyed them. I hope, like, my hope with my reviews is to inspire you to read these books. Honestly, like, that's why I feel compelled to write my reviews instead of just speak them like offhandedly, because I feel if I don't write them down, I'm like selling the book short. And like I want to I write these right after I'm done reading them, so that because the emotions that some of these books make me feel are so fresh, and I think that helps. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm gonna tend to my chicken now, and I'll see you on the next one. Okay, bye.